All right. Well, I want to welcome you to the Community Partners Council Monthly Forum. My name is Corey Stutes. I'm Community Impactor. Actually, my title just changed. I'm Director of Impact Strategy and Grants at United Way of Licking County. Yeah, I'm not used to saying that yet. It just happened recently. So, want to welcome you to this month's forum. Today we'll be discussing food deserts, addressing food access in Licking County. I'm excited to dive into this conversation. We've got a great panel. But before we do that, I do want to share just a couple of announcements. As I've said many times, there is food over there, so please help yourself. If at any time you want to get a refill, coffee, get some more, there's some really good French toast stuff over there. Help yourself at any time. Restrooms are located back out in the hallway that you came through as you head towards the main entrance of the building. They're just on your right. So please tend to your needs as you need to. Just want to give a couple of United Way reminders. So we have several fund partners in the room, several of you who may be interested in applying for funding from United Way for 2027. We are currently accepting those applications for our 2027 Community Impact Grant process. There's still time left. We've got about a week and a half until the deadline. So those applications are due June 19th. So if you're not already working on those, you'll want to make sure that you are. And again, that's for funding through 2027. We also have a lot of events coming up. We have, as you're here attending, we have our monthly forums on the second Wednesday of every month on a different topic. So you want to check out our website, unitedwaylc.org. You can go to our event page to get details on that and register. We are also, I know it seems like it's far away, but we are thinking about our Week of Caring. So that's coming up in September. I believe the kickoff is September 12th, I think is the correct date. As long as that's a Friday, that's the date. So we are in the process of accepting projects for that. So funded partners, especially if you haven't reached out to us, Emma Chapman is the one who is receiving those projects. The deadline to submit volunteer projects for the Week of Caring is July 17th. So put your thinking caps on, think of some things that you need done that you just don't want to do and you've been putting off and you would like to pass off to a volunteer, and we will do that. If you're not familiar with the Week of Caring, that is a week-long volunteerism event where we mobilize usually over 300 volunteers around the county to address between 30 and 40 volunteer projects. It's a great opportunity for team building, to get out in the community, interact with some organizations that maybe you've never learned about or you aren't familiar with. And for our project sites, it's a great way for you to engage with the public. We've had many people who have recruited board members that way or recruited other volunteers that way. So it's kind of a two-way street here. It works for everybody. This is our, I want to say, 33rd annual Week of Caring. So definitely a favorite event of ours. So you'll want to check that out as well as our other upcoming events on our website. Make sure that you're following us on Facebook, Instagram, whatever social media you use. And that way you can stay up to date. So with that, we are going to dive into our conversation here. Again, we're talking about food access in Licking County. I'm joined by a panel of some local experts, and I will say we've also got a lot of experts in the room as far as food access. So one of the benefits of this setup is that the panelists will be having a discussion with questions that we have already planned out, but you have the opportunity to provide your questions as well. So on your tables, you have a lot of materials that relate to today's event, but there are a couple of things with our CPC logo on it, or a United Way logo. One of those is a long skinny strip and it says questions for program speaker. So you're welcome to write questions that you think of. If there's something that you would like clarified, if there's a question that didn't get addressed, please feel free to write those on those slips of paper during the presentation. And then at the end of our questions, we'll come around and gather those and we'll ask those questions to our panelists as well. So if you've got any questions, if you've got any input, sometimes people put clarifying things on there. That's your opportunity to do that as well. So we like to think of this as a conversation, not just a presentation. So today we are joined by Christa Schworm, who is the Public Assistance Administrator for Licking County Job and Family Services. And I'll let them give a more in-depth introduction of themselves. But in her role, she oversees vital benefits such as food and medical assistance. We have Vanessa Cross, who is the Executive Director for Together We Grow, which if you're not familiar, you should learn about. You're going to learn about, but you should definitely learn about Together We Grow. And then finally, we have Chuck Moore, who is the Executive Director of the Food Pantry Network of Licking County, which is a role he's been in for 23 years. So he is the man in the know about food pantries in Licking County and I'm sure beyond. So let's give our panelists a big round of applause. All right, so as I mentioned, our panel have been provided some questions in advance that we are preparing for our discussion. So we will start with those. So Christa, we'll start with you. I think you may have to turn that mic on. But panelists, if you could, just to start off, please give us a brief overview of the organization that you're representing, as well as the work that you do relating to food access in Licking County. Okay.
Hi there, good morning. My name is Christa Schworm, as mentioned. I'm the Public Assistance Administrator. And one of the programs that we do determine eligibility for is the Food Assistance Program. Just to talk a little bit about that, eligibility for food assistance is based on, first we look at household composition. So within that composition, who lives in the home? And from there, we will ask, do you purchase and prepare your food together or separate with the people in the home? The next question from that is, how are you related? Because sometimes age and relationship will also determine eligibility. And based off those questions, we build what we call an assistance group. So after we determine the assistance group, after we look at the assistance group, then we'll look at income. What is the household, what is the income for our assistance group? And then the next question is, what do the expenses look like? Rent, utilities, mortgage, childcare, things like that. So when we look at the assistance group size, we look at income and expenses. And from there, the food assistance allotment is determined. After we determine the allotment, the eligibility is for 1 year. It's rotated from a 6-month paper review, and then another 6 months it's a telephone interview. So we're consistently having access or checking on cases just to make sure that the eligibility is determined correctly. What are the common ways to file? This has evolved over time. It used to be a paper application and a face-to-face interview, and then that has evolved. We went to an online application and we put some computers in our resource room and had access to staff to help customers navigate the computer. After that, we were able to take audio signatures, and from there it really evolved. So now the most common way to file for food assistance is over the phone. Just to give you a little bit of what that looks like, last month, we had 300 online applications for food assistance. We had 800 phone applications, and we had 50 paper applications. So you can see how that's evolved. The average phone call, probably 20 to 40 minutes, just depending on how complex the case is, who lives in the home, getting into utilities, and then all that's entered and things like that. I also talked earlier about having to do reviews on cases, and we average about 400 SNAP reviews each month as well, and all those are also done over the phone. So as you can tell, our phone lines have really gotten really busy. Usually the first 2 weeks of the month is our busy time because those renewal interviews are completed. Just another little fun fact that I pulled up right now, we have about 16,000 Licking County recipients on food assistance. Of those 16,000, that equated to about 8,400 cases. So it might be parents and children a case. However, of the 16,000, about 10,000 are adults and the 6,000 for children. We have seen a shift in that. Obviously, when we take a look back from COVID, Our food assistance numbers did grow a little over 18,000, and as people got back to work and the unemployment has gone down, those have slowly been trickling down. That's pretty much me.
Hey everyone, I am Vanessa Cross. As Corey said, I'm the executive director for Together We Grow Gardens. The Together We Grow is a community garden nonprofit. So we are putting gardens in low income areas of Licking County, as well as food desert areas, which is kind of what we're talking about today. We are primarily focused on providing resources to fight food insecurity for our residents, with a focus on education, providing resources to improve self-sufficiency, and working to provide vegetables and produce that are in our free U-Pick markets, and we also have rentable garden spaces. So in whatever way we are able to participate with families that are working, we are also in schools. We believe a lot in giving education to people so they are able to fight their own food insecurity. So we are working with kids as they're growing up, giving them the education to plant, to grow, how to cook with food, how to prepare things so that they, as they are growing, as they're aging, they're able to provide for themselves. We think that the biggest resource you have is yourself and your mind and your ability in yourself. So we work with people. The best resource that we have is that we do not have to qualify anyone. And so it's something that we work really hard to stick to and to make sure we have funding so that people who want food can have it. There's a lot of resources in Licking County, but a lot of times you have to qualify for them. So something that we work really hard to do is to make sure that people, when they want food or need food, can have it. And so we work a long-term goal of ours is to be able to grow and to provide food year round. We haven't quite met that goal yet, but we are working that way, growing indoors and being able to have food access all of the time, so that those folks who may not always qualify for some of the SNAP benefits or other things in that way are able to still have access to fresh food. And one of the things that one of the qualifiers to be considered a food desert is affordability and access. So it's not all about whether the store or the resource is next door. It is also about what you can afford to do and how you're able to prepare it. So it's something that we work really hard to do, is to make sure that everyone has the access to those resources in the moments that they need them, and not always when their paycheck reflects that. So that's who we are.
Hi, I'm Chuck Warren, the director of the Food Pantry Network. So basically, we're an organization that provides food to 44 different agency partners throughout Licking County. So we have 22 pantries throughout the county, 9 after-school programs that we provide food to, as well as 13 shelters or soup kitchens that we're providing food to. Really, our job is to get the food in and get it back out. Our 500 plus volunteers are the ones that do the day-to-day work and make sure that if you need food on any certain day, you have access to that food. That last year, we distributed roughly about 4.3 million pounds of food. The families that came in, we had 138,000 service visits from families that came in throughout the entire year to get food from us. As we look to figure out how we're going to better serve the communities, Alyssa 2 years ago came to me and said, hey, let's open up our markets, let's open up our pantries, let's make access available on a daily basis, not a monthly basis. That's what we did 2 years ago. So families in Licking County have the opportunity to get food on a daily basis at any one of our pantries, to make sure that it's healthy food, whether it's a produce market, or one of our produce pop-ups, or just any of our pantries out there. But for us, it is just a matter of collaborating with different groups. We were excited that Coalition of Care and Newark City Schools teamed up and opened up a pantry last week for the city of schools of Newark. We've been with the backpack program for a number of years when they started with the YMCA. And one of the things that we felt was a concern was those kids that got that backpack program through elementary school, what happened when they go to middle school or into high school? And they relied on that access to that food. The pantry at the Newark City Schools is now going to offer that with Coalition of Care. So we're always looking at ways to better serve the community, to make sure that we're providing food to those that need it. One of the things that was really beneficial, probably, and I'm gonna say 12, and maybe you can correct me, maybe 16 months, we're at 200% of the federal poverty level. So prior to, I think probably 16 months ago, SNAP was not equal to us. They ran a different percentage than what we do. That we now are equal to that. So their SNAP benefits are now 200% of poverty as well. So anyone that walks in and says, hey, I qualify for SNAP, we know they automatically qualify for our services as well, which really helps the community in a whole, because there was a gap between, I think you guys were 135. So that 135 to 200, they couldn't help, we could help, but now we both can help those families as well.
Awesome. Thank you for all that information. So again, as I said, panelists, as we work through these questions, feel free to pass the mic if someone has one answer, if you all have something to contribute. But as we talk about this next question, by now we've all heard the term food desert. Vanessa touched on it. It's come up a little bit in our conversation already. But just so that we are all on the same page, what does that mean? Vanessa, you mentioned affordability, access to food, but it can be kind of it's a funny sounding term if you're not familiar with it. So what is that? Do we have food deserts in Licking County? And if so, where are they?
Wow, you just went really break for it all, didn't you?
Hey, we don't waste time here.
Yeah.
Did you see how many questions I have on the paper?
Yes, we have food deserts, and back to the food deserts, I would say, personally, people not having access to food. Alyssa corrected me yesterday, said it's healthy food, Chuck, make sure you get healthy food in there. And that's really having access to healthy, affordable food that you can get. Do we believe there's food deserts? You'll see a number of graphs that we dropped on the table that shows the 2023 community health assessment from the health department that shows where some of the things are at that are in Licking County that they pulled together. And then you'll see another dot sheet that we have that kind of shows where folks are getting food from us. And when you lay those over top of each other, if there's certain areas that we probably are underserving, and we will look at this and continue to try to grow. But those were some of the things that we've done is we've seen things come up where we run an Alexandria produce market. We knew there wasn't a lot of stuff in Alexandria. We run a Kirkwoodville produce market. We started those probably about 5 to 6 years ago because those were areas that we felt were underserved by grocery stores or other organizations, and we didn't have pantries in those places. So we purposely tried to look at those locations to drop some of our produce markets. Now, unfortunately, Kirkwoodville shuts down through the holidays. So they run till Thanksgiving, they shut down through February. So what happens during that time for those families? Alexandria, they do run one through the winter, but there are spots. City of Newark, I'd like to say we do a really good job of covering that area. Alyssa would probably tell you we still have spots and holes that we're probably not hitting. So you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, to define it, I actually looked up a definition just so that my thoughts and things that I tell you are actually accurate. It's fine. No, it's what we believe, but I want to make sure they're actually real. No, and so the official definition refers to having limited access to the affordable food and healthy and nutritious food. So, right, there are a couple of different terms and they're fancy, but the food desert references those communities, and even in an urban, this maybe I'm jumping ahead, sorry, but in an urban environment, it looks more at what is walkable and what you can access without, if you are one of those folks who do not drive. In a more rural area, we're talking about so many miles. I think the official number is around 10 miles that from an actual grocery store that provides those fresh, healthy produce options. Where to go? The other piece of it, and it's not necessarily considered a food desert, but what it's called is a food swamp. And so something that you will notice in the difference is that there is food available, but it's not healthy food. So a food swamp would look at an area that has like fast food or convenience stores or gas stations or places that you can go in and get something to eat, right? If you are starving and need food, those are options, but those are not healthy resources where they will be sustaining and long-term and setting you up for healthy goals. So it's something that is important to distinguish. Sorry, it's not that there is no food available. It's something that is good for your body, is nutritious, and can stick with you long term. And and we already talked about it. Yes, absolutely. There are food deserts in Licking County. Looking at, actually a map, we had an intern work with us 2 summers ago that helped us to develop a food desert map. And we went through the criteria that are actually most important towards Licking, or not Licking County, I'm sorry, towards Together We Grow, and the way that we determine where we put our gardens, where we have those resources set. And I had the list and I didn't bring it, but it is, we identified a couple of years ago, kind of 3 or 4 or 5 kind of major areas in Licking County. Newark is obviously in that list because of the poverty level in the urban area here. Buckeye Lake is on there, Hebron, Fredonia, Utica. We just put our newest garden out in Hanover. And so that corner of the area of town is also considered a food desert. So just to name a few.
When I think about the food desert and how it relates to job and family services, when an applicant first comes on and they get their food card, if they haven't been on before, that food card can take about 7 days to be delivered. So I think about their access to food assistance at that point in time. And that's when I refer to some of the other programs, whether it be the food pantry and also Vanessa talking about the Help Me Grow. So we really do rely on each other to ensure that customers have access to the food assistance. Sometimes it's just a matter of transportation. I did have a gentleman call me and didn't have transportation. He rode his bike and the store was too far for him. So yeah, there's definitely deserts in Licking County.
Awesome, thank you. And Vanessa, really interesting concept of the food swamp, where there might be food available, but just not healthy food. And just thinking of the implications further down the road of how that would impact someone's well-being and their health, and someone who maybe already doesn't have access to regular health care, how that sets them back.
Yes, I wanted to include, we did invite WIC to come today, and they were unable to make it because they actually are at a satellite office today. So that's been their effort to try to get WIC to different locations in Licking County is to set up those satellites. So we welcomed WIC and would have loved to have their input, but they're busy doing the work in the trenches at satellite offices.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
a little addition to that.
That's how it goes. And to be honest, we would rather,
Yeah.
if you're unable to make it, they're out there.
Yeah.
They're doing something very important, but that's such a concept, we always try to think on a systems level, and it's easy to get focused in on one issue, one problem, one whatever it is that is happening in a community, whether we're talking about this or another topic. But looking at how that one string of the spider web, if you pull on it, it impacts everything else. So that's a really interesting idea that I don't know if I was familiar with that concept before, or the term food swamp, so definitely makes sense. So when we think about Licking County, what type of information do we even have available to know if people are significantly dealing with hunger or just a lack of food access in Licking County? Do we have data to show how many people are lacking that access and relying on food assistance programs, or how do we get an idea of the overall need?
I'm thinking about just in general, the number of Licking County residents that I would have on food assistance. So obviously that fluctuates as we look at employment for our area. So that's where I think it would relate to me.
Sure.
So I have a couple of notes, but not a lot of official statistics. That's not our ballgame. But we do to consider the reports, especially when we're developing these maps and we look at those numbers. We use your Alice report pretty often, right? Because that identifies not just the poverty line, but it also looks at households or families that have more than one working income and are still not able to meet their basic needs. And that's really important to us because that's the gap we're trying to stand in. And that not for particular groups of people and how that fluctuates. So, right, it's not always that today. I might not need it today, but I might need it tomorrow. And so that's really important to us. But we are not necessarily statistics people, and specifically because I am not qualifying people. And so that is something that we don't necessarily have to pay quite as hard attention to in our work. But there are lots of organizations that are providing those types of SNAP benefits and access. We obviously, all of us have websites with all of the different information as far as when and where those resources are at. I also have a really cool benefit today of being a voice for our Licking County Food Council. A number of the people in the room have joined in that conversation, and we are working on some documents that will combine a lot of that information. So a lot of us have resources. There's a lot of times in different areas in Licking County that those food accesses are open, and even in the option of like the market will double those benefits and things like that. So you have opportunity to get more for the money that you have. So those are not available yet. We're working on it. We are making sure that those are resources that are complete and accurate. So there are a lot of outdated information pieces that are out flying around online and in old flyers and things like that. So it is something that we just had a meeting yesterday, approving the formats for those documents, and they are coming. So stay tuned. They're actually really cool looking. Thank you to our friends at Gardens for All who are guiding us in that marketing material. But we are hoping to be able to put those resources together so that we can have a unified, consistent piece of information that everyone has access to.
So we also don't track what the actual need is. What we do get from Mid-Ohio and also from Feeding America, that 1 in 5 folks living in Licking County suffer from food insecurity. So that's basically the number that we'll run with. But we've never really dove into seeing exactly how many folks in the county suffer from that.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that information is very helpful to just kind of get an idea of how do we know and how, some of the numbers though, Chuck, as you said earlier, 138,000 visits to the food pantries, kind of tells you something, gives you some idea. So
It sure does.
yeah. Over the last several years, there has been some really incredible work done in Licking County to expand access to food, and to create awareness of food insecurity as an issue in this community. What types of programs, organizations, or services are currently available to address food insecurity? Now, I know you all won't have an exhaustive list probably, and we have a lot of people in the room who are also representatives of these. But just from what you know that's available, if someone is looking for assistance for food, what are some things that could be options?
Yeah, for us, if you're at 200% of poverty, basically any of our pantries are open. And for us, really, that the incredible work, I think some of that comes back to what Lake Memorial Health System is doing with the transit and making sure that folks have access to transit to be able to get not only the doctor's appointments, but also into pantries. The pantry that they have with us is on the transit line. They went out and bought special carts that would fit on the bus to make sure that transportation back and forth to their homes is beneficial. So that was really what kind of guided us and got us to start looking at what else is out there, what else can we do for our organization to better serve folks that need food. I was at Denison and I listened to some kids talk and do a final presentation, and one of the things that was discussed was one of the young men talked about, well, food insecurity, does that always mean that they don't have access, or is it sometimes they don't realize what's out there, what's available? And they wanted to make sure that folks that may not know about the different programs, they're still food insecure because they just don't know that it's there. They may be right by a pantry or live close, but if they're new to the area, we get these calls all the time. Well, where do you go to get a pantry? Oh my gosh, we've been promoting this for years. How do you not know where we're at? But there are folks that move in and there are folks that come along and there's folks that have never needed any more services. And now they need our services. They need JFS. They need those different types of things. And so really for us is how do we get the word out a little bit better to make sure, I can't speak for other organizations. I know there's a lot of great stuff going on in this county.
I'll speak to our programs at least at first. There are a number of different organizations and hopefully those lists will be out shortly, but our primary program that Together We Grow runs is our free U-Pick market. So typically starting mid-July through the end of summer, whenever those plants stop producing, we open up 4 different garden locations in Licking County once a week, and they're not at the same time typically. So there's a different Monday, Wednesday, And Saturday, we have different locations that are open for about an hour and a half, and you can come and pick anything that you want. So the goal is that my people are not picking it and producing a particular package of things that we think looks good. You can come and take what you want or what you need. And to date, I don't think I have ever, and you guys can kind of speak to this too. I don't think we have ever limited someone on what they were allowed to take when they came. So if you want to feed 20 people, that's okay with me, right? If you're eating it, please do so. And so that is our main program. We also offer those rentable beds. So if you want to grow it yourself, then it's yours and we don't have to fight over it. So it is available to you. We have those spaces. They're very, very low cost, and we do the majority of all of the work for you other than actually planting it once you get to that point. So we try to make growing and learning and feeding produce fun and accessible so that it's not right. There's going to be some even if it's perceived some just heavy feelings about having to use resources in town. It's prideful and things like that to have to go and do those things on occasion. However, we try to meet people where they are, and if they are able to grow their own food and to fight their own food insecurity, it gives them a little power and a little bit of say back into what they're able to consume. So those are our programs. There are lots of other ones, and again, other people in the room that provide those resources.
For JFS, I would say food access, as mentioned earlier, has really changed with the availability to do the phone applications. That saved customers time, gas money to get into the agency. Also to turn in verifications. You know, they would have to run copies and things like that. Now, one of the biggest way that we get applications is, or verifications, somebody would do a screenshot of their pay stub and they email those in. So just having that technology to send in verifications to help expedite their eligibility. Also, Chuck mentioned the pantries in transit. That's also huge. What we do also is a lot of referrals. We have a lot of informational flyers for customers, whether it be the food pantry, here's the transit line. So we really do support each other. I brought a couple things that we have in our pamphlets and things we share. And it was mentioned that the Canal Market does food assistance match. So that's big, access to healthy food. So you take your EBT card there and they give you tokens. So it's a bigger bang for your buck. So that's a very great program as well. And then also we share information about food boxes for seniors and things like that. Free lunches in the area. So with JFS, we have our food program, but we also refer to other community partners as well.
Awesome, thank you. And as I mentioned, we do have a lot of folks in the room who are representing organizations that are increasing access to not just food, but quality food and fresh food in Licking County. So if you're not familiar, we've got the Garden for All over there. If you guys want to raise your hands, yep. I saw Bailey, Bailey's back there from Canal Market District. Christa mentioned that, really cool program. Carol?
The aging partners, Meals on Wheels.
Right, yeah, absolutely. That is a critical program. We've also got transit over here, and transit is a huge part of people accessing food. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys have a service that you provide trips directly to a grocery store, correct? Yeah. Yeah. So it is. It's been a huge part. We've got a lot more folks from Together We Grow. Is there anybody that I'm missing?
Summit Station bags of hope. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, awesome. So if you're not familiar with that program, that is also really great. They have done so much work to provide those supplies and resources to folks. And I believe you have a food pantry there too, right, at the Summit Station UMC. So Alyssa's here.
Can I add though, Bags of Hope is the option we can give people in this county if they don't qualify for the food bank. So right now I've probably referred 3 phone calls in the last few weeks because people don't meet our income guidelines, but they're still struggling. So that's a big,
Don't
yeah.
require any ID nor income verification.
Correct, yeah, so they're not partners with us, so they're not limited to USDA guidelines. And
Yeah.
so that's been a big,
We fill in the
help.
cracks.
yes.
Awesome, awesome.
you located?
Summit Station United Methodist Church.
Oh,
In Pataskala.
Summit Road.
Mhm. And then I think, also the main place, you guys have like meals and congregate meals.
Yeah, we do a daily hot lunch and we also serve continental breakfast every day, Monday through Friday.
Great, great. Yeah, give them a round of applause, yeah. So just in this,
A lot of places have community dinners.
they do, a lot of churches, yep, yep, and I see the library back there, summer meal.
We're doing the summer meals and they start doing announcements for that to all the patrons. That's beautiful to hear that this year.
Yeah, yeah, and there are several sites, that are summer meal programs.
I would also add, similar to the Methodist Church, Southgate Church of Christ that I attend does their own internal food pantry as well. And I'm not sure who qualifies or who that's open to, but I don't think it has any stipulations that
Mhm.
and participate in that, but that food's provided by congregants bringing in food.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's one thing that is so encouraging is to see all of the efforts that people are making throughout the communities in Licking County to address this, because I think we all know, no matter whether you depend on, a formal food assistance program, if you depend on a pantry, or if you don't, we all can understand that there's increased need right now. We all see our grocery bill going up. We all know that transportation can be a barrier. So I think it is really encouraging to see so many churches, so many clubs, so many other groups that are working to provide. Ashley?
I was just gonna say, Family Health Services run McMillan Drive. Right across the street is the pantry with Licking Memorial. And every day it is so busy there. And you see transit pull up right in front of it and let folks off. And I always say, because I'm me and I'm a community partner North, but I'm like, what a cool visual of Licking Memorial, food pantry network, transit, like all these people coming together to serve. Didn't you say, Chuck, at one point that is your busiest now?
It is our largest now,
Yeah, I
yes.
can tell. It is busy all day, every day that it's open. But it's cool to see how all those people came together to serve, obviously, a very needed population there. And how transit runs right there and Licking provided the space. It's just cool to see every day. It's sad to see how busy it is, to be honest. Some days I walk out and think, wow, that's sad. But then I think, but how cool that they all came together to provide that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
just a shout out to that particular location I watch every day. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all. Oh, we have a couple more.
I know we're just.
I know, we'll probably have to move along here, but.
And I think that, I think it's wonderful to hear about all the resources in Lincoln County, but I can tell you that, one of our biggest issues in Lincoln County is that the issue of information.
Sure.
And so, let's just admit that food security is really a very private, quiet entity that happens in people's lives. And so an older adult, perhaps it's just, having more expenses, trying to pay bills, or maybe their rent is going up, or there's all those, things that create pressure upon that system. We know for a fact that they've indicated to us, they spend less on food and personal services so that they can keep a roof over their head as the number one priority. So the question I always ask is, how do we create a network that is easily accessible to someone who is quietly having a crisis in their home? How do we get this information out of this incredible network? How do we get this to them?
I think, and that has actually really plays into our next question, which we've talked about a little bit, which the question is, how do folks access food assistance programs and what barriers might be present? Which I know we have talked, the panels already talked on some of this. Obviously, that's a huge barrier. This is an opportunity too that I want to make sure that we all, I think everyone in this room is aware, but that we're also spreading the word about 211, because that is a way that is someone can completely anonymously. And now again, it might be difficult for someone to even take the initiative to call 211. I understand that, it can be really challenging to have a need, whatever it is, and actually address that. But one of the things that we have been really trying to promote is 211 and the utilization of 211 because it is an absolutely critical aspect of our community and the way to get word out there about what programs are available. But that's a really, really, really important thing to bring up. And I think it goes back to what Chuck said about food insecurity might not mean that you don't live near a resource, but that you just don't know about it. And that you have never either had the means or the understanding or just the knowledge of its existence to access it. So those are definitely important things to keep in mind. And I know we have talked on this quite a bit. Do you guys have anything to add on that question?
So we really try to just get them to come through the door, but we allow for kids to pick up for their adults. We allow for home health aides to pick up for adults. So we really have tried to make it as easy as possible. If you come in and say, hey, I'm here to pick up on this behalf, we're gonna be signed to the system on there so that sometimes they may not even know it's coming from us, but a family member has come in and picked up on for that family's behalf. So we do that. When we started these produce markets, we did it here at the aging program years ago. And the reason was because the seniors would say, we're not gonna take away from other people that need it because we'll make do. When they found out it was a program at the aging program, then it's like, well, we're entitled to that now. They're still qualified, but that stigmatism went away. And so that for years, we ran it right out here in the parking lot because we wanted them to get comfortable with us. Now, when we moved in our new building, we moved it over, but we saw a lot of those seniors come with us as well, which is really what we wanted with the fresh produce. So we tried to really make it for us so if you don't want to be known, we have some drive-through pantries so that you can drive up, pull in, they give your information out your window, they come walk out with a box of food, they put it in your car and you can drive off. So we've had those issues as well where people just don't want to be known, that they don't want them to know that they've gone to a pantry. So we've tried to really look at how we operate and make sure that those barriers are down. However, your seniors are going to be the hardest ones to crack because they just don't want to take away from someone else. And we will continue to fight that fight and make sure that they know, walk through our door one time, you'll come back.
I think most of those people have worked really hard their whole lives. Now they find themselves in a different situation and don't want to, they feel embarrassed that they need things or they.
Yeah.
And it can be difficult to know, if you've never relied on any kind of assistance program before, you don't really know where to start or even how to access that. So.
I'll just add a little note, as far as one of the efforts from our Licking County Food Council, I actually didn't even know about bags of hope, which I'm embarrassed to say, but I would love to include that in our marketing material. So if you can send us some information about your timing and what you're working on, and anyone else in the room that is not already a part of that council, if you are giving out food, we would love to invite you to be a part of that conversation so that as we combine those to create those resources, and so there is that unified effort, we have as much information as possible. So please join us and let us know.
Yeah, awesome. So we have again started to touch on this. I know Vanessa, you started to touch on it a little bit, but when we think about food access, whether that's in a food desert, food swamp, just lack of information, does the person's geographic location determine how difficult it's going to be for them to access food? For instance, if they live in a rural area or an urban area or some other geographic factor?
Absolutely. A lot of times location makes one of the biggest differences. So I mentioned it earlier, but right in the rural setting, it technically qualifies, I think, around 10 miles from a store. But if you consider 10 miles it gets pretty far, especially if you don't have a car or if you don't fall within the transit line, which the addition of our transit line in the last couple of years has been incredible for our community. We've seen a lot of people mobilized where transportation is expensive and gas is expensive, or even just the ability to own a car, or maybe you don't have a license or cannot have one. So, right, like there's a lot of barriers that comes with just transportation alone. But if you are walking everywhere, food access becomes really, really difficult. So we try to put our gardens inside of local neighborhoods. We are in your backyard. That's why we have 7 currently gardens that are active. And so we try to be as accessible as possible. However, if you are not within, a mile is even still a pretty long way to walk if you're walking to get to a place or a store or a garden or wherever you're headed. So the desert is here, it's active, it's growing. The more people you are feeding, the harder that becomes. So it's one thing to carry a bag of groceries for a mile, but if you're feeding a family of 5 or more, how are you getting there? How are you getting that food back home? How are you buying it? Right, so the list continues, and so that gets more complicated, the longer you keep talking about it, so.
One of the things that I did, want to mention as far as access to food assistance, and we talk about some of the barriers. The food card, you can do the online orders and have those delivered, so that's great. Also, it does have those caveats. You have to have the technology and the access to the phone, so, or computer. So it seems great for some, still doesn't solve some problems for others. Also with those online orders, we send out information about protecting your card and your PIN number and things like that. So you gotta really watch the security of those cards when we look at online orders. I know that's been really big.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think about, even in my own life, I live in the absolute middle of nowhere. And so for me, I'm out in northeast Licking County, to get to the closest grocery store is 25 minutes drive. And so it's not a very densely populated area, but there are absolutely folks who probably are, rely on programs to make sure that they have food on the table. And, we do see a couple of pantries pop up. There's a church that has one, and there's a community center kind of in my area that has one. But again, those are both at least 10-minute drives from my house. Even if I still consider them in the general area, country neighbors, you just get things that are miles away start to be close to your house. So as you think about that, if something happened to my vehicle or something happened that I wasn't able to make it to the store, that would be a challenge quickly. So for someone that relies on those programs, I can really see how that would make a huge impact. As we all in the room are painfully aware, many organizations have faced some significant challenges relating to changes in funding sources in the last couple of years. How have food programs, including SNAP, food pantries, community meal sites, agriculture, or others, navigated these changes?
For JFS, I would say one of the challenges that we have is funding to have the eligibility workers to determine the eligibility. So when I look at my staffing levels and how that's changed, I also take a look at how many applications come in and do I meet the state and federal guidelines for application timeliness. So I have 30 days to take an action on a food assistance case, that's whether approved or denied. And then in some situations, if it's determined as an expedited where their income meets the threshold or no income in the household, I have 7 days to meet the eligibility criteria, make sure I get food access for those individuals. So I do a lot of maneuvering and juggling to make sure I meet those timeliness and to make sure I help our community get food on their table when they need it to meet those guidelines. So I would say that's the biggest thing right there for us.
I think for Together We Grow, we have the privilege of being in the nonprofit sector. So we are not necessarily governed by all of the same, funding sources. So that has been in our benefit a little bit. But what we just really try to make the most with what we have. We have a lot of wonderful grant partners and sponsors in the community. We are actively working to try to make new relationships and new sponsorships. If any of you are not on the list, we'd love to have you, but those partnerships really keep us moving. They cover the day-to-day expenses of just my staff and the supplies that we need. We are primarily grant funded, and so I have a grant writer who focuses on trying to make sure we have new and active applications all of the time. And so that we are working to just do as much as we can with as, sometimes as little as we have. So we adjust money where we need to adjust it. We move our resources, and something that we try to be aware of is that There are a lot of resources in the community that we can work together, and we don't have to overlap things, when we have the opportunity to share resources and to give information and to support our partners, as they're working towards the same goal.
So we are also a nonprofit. We don't get federal funding at all. However, we do get federal food. So if you look at the federal food, and I have a pounds report out there. So we get from a number of different buckets, one being the USDA, federal side of it, which last year was 645,000 pounds. We also get Ohio food, which actually falls under the donated as well. Because with the report, this is what we report, it's required by Feeding America. That's roughly 1 million pounds. So we took about a 40% cut on our Ohio and our USDA food. So a 40% cut of the 645 is about 258,000 pounds off of the million. It's about 400,000 pounds. That was what we saw last year. The great thing about this community is when those things happen, we go out and buy. We make sure that we go out and purchase additional food to get back into the community. So our purchase numbers will go up because of that. We'll also rely on Mid-Ohio Food Bank a little bit, or Food Collective a little bit more to try to grab some of that donated product to get into the community. The other part of it is other great partners in the community. The produce that comes in from these folks that come in and help us. You know, when we met with them last year, they said, our goal is to give you 10,000 pounds of fresh produce for the first year. And I'm like, great. I said, well, what are you giving? And they're like, lettuce. And I'm like, holy crap, you know how much lettuce that takes? I said, why don't you grow extra stuff? Like lettuce. We like, that's one of the things that they request is making sure we have lettuce. Like, great, we'll take the 10,000 pounds, but what's even better for us, Garden for All will actually have our pantries go directly into them. So they'll go in and pick up from them on the days that they're open, and so it's as fresh as can be. And then when they have an abundance, they'll call me and say, hey, if you have a truck coming through on Thursday, will you stop and pick up the extra stuff? And then they're passing it out. So not only to our pantries, but also New Albany and I think some Franklin County pantries and all over. These folks also will call us and say, hey, we have extra of this, we have this, could you use it? Absolutely, we bring it in and we get it right back out. So we do rely on a lot of other local donors during those times of the federal shutdowns happen and SNAP things get, they take away from us. The community really steps up and helps us. So the funding that comes in from the general public, we then turn right back around and make sure that we're providing the same amount of resources. So 2 years ago, we were about 4.3 million pounds. Last year, we were at 4.3 million pounds. So we typically stay right around there, about 1.3 million pounds of fresh produce. And we're grateful to be able to do that.
Wow, I mean, that's a pretty incredible testament to the power of community, really. That number didn't change even though funding went down and access from some government sources went down. Yeah, that's really impressive. So the next question, we have probably talked a lot about this already, but what specifically has worked here in Licking County to increase local access to food? We've talked about transit and opening pantries, so if there's anything to elaborate on that. But are there any things in other counties or other areas that maybe we looked at to get inspiration or that are working well in other areas that might inspire somebody?
So for us, the market system is really, I mean, I think we're trying to sell this to as many other counties as possible because of the access, of making sure that folks have access when they need food, and once again, I keep throwing a list under the bus because this was her brainchild. But she would say on a Friday when we get that phone call, or from JFS, if we get that phone call on Friday saying, hey, this person lives at this address. We need to get them food. And we say, oh, that address, their pantry's open next Tuesday. She's like, what in the world, child? I can't answer that. That's not, we're here to provide food. We need to come up with something. Or she'll talk about out in Licking County or out in the Licking Heights School District. They do a huge food drive for us and they give it to our league's pantry. Majority of those kids live in Franklin County and couldn't come to our pantries and get food. So part of it was not only opening up access on a daily basis where you can get food, and really, she told me, we walked into one pantry and I watched a lady walk through, get a gallon of milk and walk out. And I went, what in the world? She didn't take everything else. And I was like, that's probably all she needed for the day. Holy crap. I looked at her and said, okay, let's do it tomorrow. We'll change it. And so really within a couple months, we made the big change and we told all our pantries, here's what we're going to do. You're going to be open daily. We also, so that you know, what if you live in Franklin County, but you come to Licking County to work. And she'll use me and say, I live in Muscatine County. And so she'll say, my board would say, well, why are we serving outside of Licking County? Well, Chuck works here. Should we not feed Chuck? If he needs food, I mean, he works all day and his pantries in Muscatine County might be shut down, but maybe he doesn't make enough money and he needs food. Should we not feed Chuck? I mean, he's a member of our community. So we opened up. If you live anywhere around, you come in and get food from us, even if you're out of county, we're gonna serve you. Now, the caveat being, we know that 20% of the folks in Licking County go outside of our county to get food as well through Mid-Ohio's resources. So why not reciprocate what they're doing for our community back to their communities? And so that's for us, and just allowing people access to food really, I think, has been one of the biggest things we could go on and promote to other counties and say, hey, this is what's best. I've been to a few Feeding America conferences and I will tell you, they talked about, one food bank talked about, hey, we have 6 produce markets. And I'm like, all 6 produce markets, that's great. Yeah, we have 7 counties we serve. We do 1 county a month on a produce market. Do you understand? We have 5 each week in the county, and then we have 2 markets that provide fresh produce, and we have donors that bring us in for extra produce to give out. We're blowing things out of the water compared to what other counties are doing. And it's because of all of you great folks out here and the other partners that team up with us to make sure folks are getting fed.
Awesome.
And you, Sean.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
I don't have a lot to say about other counties.
Well, you know, we can totally celebrate Licking County and talk about what we've done.
Said, I've had a lot of questions from folks before. Do you have gardens outside of Licking County, or would you come to, you know, this area? I said, until we have fed Licking County, I'm gonna stay here. So, right, like, we have a lot of neighbors and a lot of good things happening here. But there's still a lot of need, so we're gonna keep working here.
Well, I'm thinking about, the different JFSs and, you know, I talked about funding and workers to process cases and so forth. And, you know, we border, a big metro and, eligibility, even though all the criteria is the same, sometimes just having access, to the wait times on the phones or getting in documents and things like that. So, that is one thing that we strive to do in Licking County, is just make sure that we do the timeliness. And, you know, if I get that call where somebody's called in and they're talking about a dire need and, it gets escalated up to me, I'm always gonna make things happen to make sure that, somebody has access to food.
Awesome, thank you. Before we move on, we highlighted the Garden for All, and Chuck talked about what they do, but I just want to really quickly say how fortunate we are to have them in our county. You guys are up to how many pounds of produce now annually? 50,000 pounds of produce that they grow, give away completely. Everything that they grow is donated and is utilized by food pantries. And you really rapidly scaled really quickly. So they have a farm located in Johnstown. I just think that's such an amazing model, and something that, you know, people, you just don't expect. It's a full-fledged farm and everything is being given away. And it's benefiting food pantries in Licking County as well as in Franklin County. So, really, really cool. I really encourage you to stick around in this room and just network, because the amount of resources that are here is pretty impressive. So speaking of resources and partnerships, we've talked so much about some of the really crucial partnerships that have added to the accessibility of food for individuals in Licking County, with the hospital, with transit, with agricultural partners, between pantries. But are there any gaps or partnerships that you would like to see that are currently missing that could help streamline things or add additional benefits to residents in Licking County?
I told you.
I got one.
No, this is something we have discussed a couple of times in my years with Together We Grow. There has been conversation about a mobile grocery store. I don't know that it ever actually came to fruition. I think there may have been a couple of trials that went out. And that's something that I think is working, right, is to be able to take food out and to go out to put places. I think is something that we can continue to work towards and be able to mobilize the work that we're doing. So Chuck and his team is working that way, and we are cheering them on. And the more food that can move, the more food that can get to people, especially those outliers. We've looked at a couple of heat maps and things, those people that are moving in town to get to pantries and get to resources. If, in the instances we're able to get out and to meet them where they are, that'd be wonderful.
All right, so mobile grocery store, that's the big need in Licking County. And I do know that's been a thing over the years that has been talked about and trialed, but certainly something that could benefit. So before we continue, if you have been writing questions, or if you have questions for our audience, or for our panelists, or for the audience, I guess, there's a lot of experts in the audience. If you would go ahead and hold those up, and someone will come around and collect those for you. If you didn't get a chance to write your question down, you can go ahead and still do that. We'll still try to grab it and present that question.
Corey,
Yeah.
somebody mentioned WIC a while ago.
Mhm.
I'm here with the Board of Health, and WIC has increased their foods that people can buy with their WIC card
Oh, nice.
in local stores.
Nice. So even more. That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Carol. So panelists, while we're collecting those, we have a final question for you. It might seem like an obvious answer, but we never know. We get all kinds of, so we want to hear, what is it that inspires you and motivates you to keep working toward greater food access and stability for the residents of Licking County? I know it can probably be hard work at some times, but what is it that keeps you going?
Well, as you mentioned, and I've also mentioned, I've been doing this for 23 years. Alyssa hounded me on a daily basis of what else can we do to the community, for the community. It's really what motivates me on a day-to-day basis. To make sure that I keep her happy, and not have her continue to come back at me with, hey, let's do it. So she's talked about lockers in the past. She's talked about a mobile pantry that we take out and drive around and stop off. So yes, she continues to push those things at me. But really what motivates me, I grew up with a grandfather that did one major garden. And as a kid, we canned. But at the end of the season, my grandfather opened that garden up for the community, the little town that we lived in. And lots of other family members got to come in and partake from that garden. And it was a prize. I mean, there was never a weed. I mean, he was out there day and night all the time. And I think that giving back is really what motivates me, is making sure that I'm doing what's best for the community. I'm helping people get fed. I'm following in his footsteps to make sure that if there's somebody out there that needs food, they have access to food, is really what drives me at this point. Knowing that some kid may go to bed hungry tonight is not okay. Not in our society, not in the United States. Knowing that when we had our Kirkwoodville produce market, we had a little boy walk up through line and they handed him a banana and he goes, "What's that?" And he was like 4 or 5 years old, but didn't know what a banana was. That's heartbreaking. And so making sure that folks have access to those things, nutritious things. And a lot of times I do presentations and I'll hold up a box of Little Debbie snack cakes compared to a bag of grapes. And I say, don't judge our families. What do we know about grapes? Some may go bad. You pay by the pound. What if you bought them and there's seeds in them? I've got daughters that wouldn't touch them, or they're really sour. I got daughters that would throw them away, but our families can't afford to throw produce away that they've gone out and purchased. Little Debbie snack cakes, do they go bad? Have you ever thrown one? If you're a parent here, have you ever thrown a Little Debbie away? But I bet you've thrown an apple away. I bet you've thrown a banana away or a grape away. So those are some things that drive me, is making sure that the families that we are serving aren't judged for their choices, because they're making the choices that's best for their families, that we may not agree with, but that's best for their families, and using their resources to the best of their ability.
Great, thank you.
I think one of my favorite things about my job is getting to know individuals. If you know me at all, I probably had a conversation with you because that's what I like to do. I want to know the people that come through our markets. And so I go just to talk to people. I take my team with me so their work gets done, but I get to talk to the people that come and get to know their stories and get to know why they are there and what they're doing. And so that's really important to me and it drives me every day. And we get to July. And we've been hauling for months, trying to get plants planted and growing and vegetables and all of the things that, it's the actual work. And then we get to July and I get to go out there and talk to the people that are coming. And then I go, oh yeah, this is why we do what we do, because they're here and they're bringing their families and they're having fun. The kids get to come and pick a vegetable for the first time, and that's really cool. And so I keep going because they keep needing us and they keep coming with their stories and their lives, and that matters. So.
When I think about what motivates me, is, really, it's just having people in my own family who have struggled with, whether it be homelessness, other barriers, drug addiction, mental health crisis, things like that. So being in a social service agency has, it really just kind of fills my bucket. I always have the thought in mind when I work with my customers. I hope that there's somebody sitting across my family member that is caring that I am, because I want somebody to help my family member. So I just take that extra step and look at the person in front of me as I'm helping them. They're in a time of crisis and the no judgment. Just, I need help and what can I do to help you? So that's my personal motivator.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing that. I think it's good to be reminded of what keeps you going and why people do what we do. So I appreciate all of you sharing that. So we have some questions from the audience. And someone asked, I think we might have touched a little bit on this. But someone asked, is there a delivery option for families who may not have a vehicle or may have a disability and need food without any kind of families to help? So is there an option for people to have a food delivery?
I just mentioned earlier, the option if you have access to order food online, Amazon orders is big, Walmart orders, things like that. But obviously, if they're not computer savvy, they're gonna need somebody help them navigate that process.
Off the top of my head, I know LCAP does a Meals on Wheels program for seniors. I don't know of anything specifically, otherwise that might be free.
Yeah, so for us, it is literally, you have to have someone else come in on your behalf. But we don't have anything where you can go online and order or call in and order and then us deliver it to you.
Okay. Thanks for that information. So maybe there's an opportunity for someone, if you've got an idea, you can be the in-between and pick up food for someone. Are there any plans to bring more food access to Utica or the Utica area?
So we currently run a pantry out of Utica, as well as we drop off produce to make sure that there's produce up there. So they operate every Thursday in that location. Right now, they're serving 60 to 70 families a week with us. But that's the only issue is it is limited. It's Thursday at 2 o'clock. And so there's not, we don't have anything else set up right now. I think there's another pantry that's starting just trying east of Utica that was looking at starting an independent pantry outside of us. So there are 6 pantries in the county that don't affiliate with us. Once we find out about those, we will refer folks to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a garden in Utica. So those, like I said, our markets are just in the summertime, but that will start mid-July or whenever that produce is available. It is behind the recycling center in Utica. So she opens up typically on Saturday around noon and is there for about an hour, hour and a half, or whenever people stop coming. Then she'll stop going. If she also works at Schaefer Chiropractic. So if you went in there and said, hey, Renetta, can I have some food today? She'd meet you out back. So absolutely, there are resources. These officially open on Saturdays, but call me, call her, and we'll make sure that there's somebody there.
Cool. Do you know, is the library in Utica a summer meal site?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I wasn't sure off the top of my head, they had a, summer lunch program there.
They do, but it's run by the community.
Oh, it's a community based, okay.
They run their own lunch program for youth and youth area.
Oh, okay, all right. Obviously, that's only gonna be during the summer, and I assume only for, kids, but good to know the options that are available there. Have there been any limitations, from the government as far as what SNAP recipients can buy with those benefits? Has that been impacting program participants?
Yeah, that's been a hot topic lately. They're looking to, make those changes. I think you're referring to like the sugary beverages and things like that, in October. I don't have any official paperwork that's crossed my desk, so I'm learning about things as you have right now as well. So yeah, they are looking to make some changes to that.
Okay, thank you. Someone also asked, are there any organizations that help people learn how to prepare healthy meals or to preserve their vegetables and fruit?
I'm thinking about I think it's the OSU Extension Office.
I think that, was that,
It's Master Gardeners.
okay.
They do a lot of educational classes.
I was thinking that SNAP Ed did some of that, but
And they were cut.
yeah, they went away, so.
So Master Gardeners, through OSU Extension does have a, series of classes, and it's different every time, but they do a lot of different educational things, and their focus really, they do have a physical garden, but it is primarily focused on education. So, I imagine their website has that list, but. I'm sorry.
They also donate a lot of their food, I think, to the food pantry, don't they?
That's true.
Master Gardeners.
Yeah. So, and Licking Memorial, also does is it a recipe card,
It's a newsletter.
a newsletter?
So it might give you tips on staying hydrated in the winter, but then the back of the newsletter does have healthy recipes with foods that you typically find in the markets. So it's not in person, but they do have a program, I think, maybe, or they have in the past in person.
Okay, yeah, good to know, especially to your point, Chuck, about throwing away the grapes and apples and, you know, how do you keep that stuff? How do you keep it? Very important to know. So someone asked, how are your organizations planning for population growth in Licking County? As we know that not all jobs or all people that move in will be high-paying jobs, and this might increase the need for support services.
So pre-COVID, we had actually moved about 5.3 million pounds of food, so our warehouse can handle that. It would just be a matter of making sure we have the resources to go out and get that food once the population increases. So we're prepared, we're ready, we have the trucks, we have the manpower. So we have been up to pre-COVID up to 5.3 million pounds, so we get out 1 million pounds pretty easy if we need to.
Great.
Together We Grow just started our newest garden last summer out in Hanover. So we do have, that is the addition of our 4th U-Pick market, that we offer through the week. Again, to my knowledge, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but, I don't think we have ever, sold out. I'm not selling anything, but right, I have never, cleared every plant off of a U-Pick market in my experience. So, we always have stuff left over that my staff will then go and pick. If it's not gonna make it another week, it'll get picked, it'll get donated to our shelters or our pantries or things like that. So, so far, we still have food available.
Great.
Well, JFS, we're kind of at the mercy of our funding, so, yeah, if I have an increase in applications, again, I'm just gonna look at doing some juggling. Where do I have a little bit of extra time? Is there another department that can help me out with this task? So really what I do on a daily basis is just kind of shift people this way and shift people that way, just to make sure that, we're getting the job done timely.
All right, thank you. And we have one last question, so I'm going to assume that this is from someone, I'm not sure who this is from, but someone who operates a pantry. They are asking, is there any place that they can purchase less expensive food for their pantry other than Aldi? So what would be a good source?
in the summer, you can let me know that you need produce and I'll bring it to you.
And I'm going to assume it's not one of my pantries because we provide all the food for free to them. So none of our pantries are charged anything. That's my job to make sure we raise the money to get the food to them.
That's my question because we operate on grants and on donations and whatever, and I thought surely there is someplace out that we could get it if we don't have to pay retail. I mean, we get the produce.
We get the produce.
Yeah. But just to go to buy. And when we were there the other day, St. Matthew's, which is a church in yeah. They were there loading up bread and whatever, and the guy said that they get theirs from the Mid-Ohio Valley Food Bank. And we said, well, we don't do that, we do it ourselves, so we get those cracks filled. And he said, but we order from them and they deliver to us. So does that mean you could go to them?
No, you have to be a partner agency with Mid-Ohio Food Collective to do that, to be able to get food from them, and then you have to fall within the guidelines.
But he said they didn't. That was the thing that got.
He
Then-
said they purchased it.
They
Right.
purchased
So-
it.
So we can connect you with Mid-Ohio Food Collective, really, and then you can talk with them about that process.
It would be the same as if you partnered with us, though. They fall within the 200% poverty guideline. Or they're not supposed to take USDA food.
I don't know. But he
But
said-
our partnership is through Mid-Ohio,
Yeah.
and then it transfers down to our local pantries.
And that just died.
So, but we could talk more about that, and I could call St. Matthew's also to see what they do.
Okay, cause
And
I'm
help
like,
you
there's
through the
sort of
process,
way we can get.
yeah.
Yeah, and the hard part is if we're going to buy, I have to buy almost a tractor trailer worth of stuff. I mean, we can't, like, if I'm going out on the open market to buy from CIS out of Minnesota or Atlantic Food out of Cincinnati, for us, cost wise, I'm buying a semi-load, so 24 pallets of product. That way I can get it the cheapest as I can get it in. To be able to go and order 5 of this and 4 of that, I'll never get it. They're gonna sell you by the pallet or multiple pallets to get it in at that price.
All right. Well, that is the end of our questions from the audience. I would encourage you all to stick around. They won't kick us out for another 35 minutes, so we've got the space. Again, I want to remind you to grab we've got flyers over there of all of the topics for our Community Partners Council forums this year. There's also information about some other programs that we operate. We talk a lot about food pantries, but we also help provide hygiene supplies in the local schools, as well as our ID replacement program. So make sure that you check those out. We have a question?
Say that I'm on the receiving end. I serve people on the receiving end of what everybody does here. And there definitely is food insecurity. I serve seniors, but I think the biggest thing is communication. I've been in my role for almost a year and didn't know about half the things that are in here. So I think someone else had mentioned that before about really getting the resources together. I have seniors, I am downtown in Candlewick Commons. So a lot of my residents don't drive, but they can get transit. We have pantries in walking distance. But as far as grocery stores, they're taking their scooters down to Save-A-Lot all the way, or they have the chickies that's like $6 for half a gallon of milk. But these resources that's available in Licking County is amazing. So if we could just figure out how to get that to everybody, I think that would help tremendously.
Yeah, that is as I said, a huge thing that we try to work on. Again, I always talk about 211, but as far as us, we have to be informed as well, and we have to make sure that we're informing those around us. So it really comes down to spreading the word. I'm not gonna say it, can't say it enough. Come to events like this, certainly helps, about all kinds of different topics. Pam?
I'm kind of curious, where does 211 get their information?
So the organizations provide that to 211. So if you are you provide any kind of service, you can contact 211 if you're not already on their list. So it's a very comprehensive list already.
So you better call.
Yeah, they do have an online directory that you can go and check, or you can always just call Pathways and just make sure that your information is up to date. I think, is it Lynn, who sends out those emails that a couple times a year will call to just say, hey, please update your listing, make sure we've got accurate information, because obviously if they don't have the correct info, they're gonna be giving out incorrect information to people.
Yeah, if you're not getting an email from her, then you're not on the list. Because
Yeah.
We get that email pretty regularly saying, hey, make sure things are updated now.
Yeah. Did someone, I thought I saw a hand over here, or,
Well, and Licking Memorial Health Systems, their market, they do also offer dietitian hours. I don't know what they are, but before, when you asked about like, what do we do with the food? You could have a personal consultation if you happen to be there, and they have them posted there. I don't remember what they are. So that's another opportunity for one-on-one education.
awesome. And I know, United Way has always kind of been on this bandwagon, but lately we cannot stress enough the importance of collaboration and cooperation. Interdisciplinary is not really the right word, but whatever you would call it, crossing the lines of what our service focuses are, is so important when we realize that we live within a system, and we have a network of providers that are all in some way tangential to the whatever given topic we're talking about. It's so important, like you said, just the communication aspect and knowing what's available. So I really encourage you to, of course, attend these, but attend other meetings in the community, reach out to folks. If you ever have questions about anything, of course, if you're looking for a resource, I recommend calling 211, but you can also give us a call at United Way. We can help direct some of that as well, because while we don't know everything that's in the county, we can at least try to point you in the right direction, or if you have a specific need, we can connect you as well or give you an idea. So,
Or if I could make a plug,
yeah,
read the reporting project. We've written about many of the organizations.
yes, that is a huge resource. Read the reporting project, subscribe to their emails if you don't, because they get, those come right to your inbox as well. And they really are highlighting all kinds of stuff in our community.
Just again, also want to add on to that, like, if you do not want to call 211, I don't want to know, we don't want any phone calls. We have a website, we're not gatekeeping the information, that directory and everything, all the resources that we have are available on the website, pathwaysofcentralohio.org. So if you go to the website and put in your zip code, age, whatever you need, we have that available to you. You do not have to call if you do not want to.
We still text. There's still a text option for 211.
Yes. So just making sure that's out there.
Yeah, awesome. And there are a whole stack of cards over there that have 211 as well as 988 info on there. So please feel free to grab as many of those as you want. If you want to have some just to hand them out, you are welcome to do that, because you've got to know something exists in order to take advantage of it. So again, let's give a big thank you to our panelists. Not just for their time here today, but also for the work that they do day in and day out. And I think it's warranted. Let's give everybody in the room a round of applause, because we really are filled with people addressing this. So thank you, not just to our panel, a special thank you to our panel, but thank you to everyone here as well, because it really does make a difference in our community, the work that you're doing, and your willingness to come together and talk about these issues. So with that, I want to encourage you, feel free to stick around. There's food, coffee over there. Please continue to help yourself. Lots of good networking opportunities here in the room. Don't miss our next forum in July. Again, you can get the information about that over there. You can visit our website, unitedwaylc.org/events, or actually it might be news and events. I don't know. Just go to our website and click on news and events. And we will see you next month. Thanks a lot.
And we're done already.
Sarah Allen.